It's possible that we didn't know it, but he was actually sitting for breakfast in Wilmington, Delaware, with Schumer and Manchin and other leaders as they were hammering out the revenue and tax portions. But I doubt it. I doubt that the senator from Kentucky has really been in the inner workings and decision process of what is going to be in the revenue package when it comes to the reconciliation bill. I couldn't tell you. Maybe the presiding officer knows more than I do, but it's a matter of negotiation. And it's ongoing. And it has not been agreed to. And yet, when you hear the senator from Kentucky come to the floor, he is announcing what's going to be in the package, as if he knows. I don't think he does. There are a couple things that we do know for sure. We know what the Republican vision of tax policy in America is because they have shown it to us over and over again. When Donald Trump was elected president, the Republican senators had a chance to do their reconciliation package, and they devoted it to changing the tax code. And to no one's surprise, they came through with their time-honored approach: cut taxes on the wealthiest people in America, and the poor and middle-class people will be happy as clams. Well, they did it and did it again and added to the deficit in the process. In fact, under their Republican president, Donald Trump, we had the largest increase, 36%, in the debt of the United States under any president in history. So when they come talking to us about tax policy, they favor the rich, and the impact on the deficit, they don't pay any attention to it when they have a president of their own party. I think we know that facts speak for themselves. Here's what we do know as well. One of our provisions in the American Rescue Plan under President Biden really specifically went after helping working families and lower income families. And it bears remembering and repeating, not a single Republican was willing to vote for that package in either the Senate or the House. They all voted against it. And one of the things included in it was a tax break for families with kids. How about that? A tax break for families with kids instead of a tax break for the multi-millionaires and billionaires, which were part of the Republican package 4 years ago. So it basically came down to kids under the age of 6, parents received $300 a month in a tax break, and those between 6 and 18, I think these figures are correct, received $250 a month. That money flowing to these families with children was the largest tax cut. It really dwarfed anything that the Republicans ever did to help working families. And we're trying to keep it on the books. I am. I think you are too. And all of us are. And you know why? Because we have too darn many families struggling in America, and they're in poverty. And we talk a lot about it, and we say, isn't it a darn shame in a great country like this that you can't afford food for your children, you can't afford a roof over their heads, you're facing eviction, you can't afford the basics to send them to school, to buy good clothes and a new pair of shoes. And we say, isn't it a darn shame, but now we've done something about it in the American Rescue Plan without a single Republican vote, not one. So our tax policy help working and lower income families, particularly with children. And if we can do it, and I hope we can engineer that tax cut to make it permanent, or at least for a number of years predictable, to help families. I just heard President Biden, he was in New Jersey speaking about infrastructure and Build Back Better, the reconciliation plan. He said that in the state of New Jersey, this child tax credit, which we enacted without a single Republican vote helping us, has reduced child poverty in that state by 36%. I'll bet you it's done the same thing in my state if it's done it in New Jersey. So we're getting practical results that help working families. And if we have our way in reconciliation, we are going to give the largest tax cut in the history of this country to middle income and working families. Exactly the opposite of what the senator from Kentucky just said. Oh, it'll be the biggest tax increase in the history. Well, there will be a tax increase, I hope, for those who can afford to pay it. And that means the same people who got a benefit 4 years ago from the Trump Republican tax policy. A lady named Lydia in my home state of Illinois described what this means to her. She wrote to my office, she said, with the child tax credit, I'll be able to buy my kids their school supplies, clothes, things they need to go back to school, and, she added, be able to buy some groceries. Think about the last time that any senator stopped and thought, I wonder if I'll have enough money to buy groceries this week. Here's a mom in Illinois with kids who says that our tax policy, the one that was just criticized by the Senate Republican leader, is helping her. Well, if the Republicans were in charge, I'm afraid they'd take that money that Lydia, who wrote to me, is talking about it, buy groceries, and put it right in Jeff Bezos' pocket. Now, I have nothing against Mr. Bezos. He's done fabulously well for himself. I've talked to him once, maybe twice, on unrelated issues long time ago. And I'm not opposed to people investing in business, being successful, and making money. But I don't believe that his income should be somehow walled off from the tax code. I believe he ought to pay his fair share, and if I remember correctly, and I'll stand corrected if I am wrong, I don't believe he paid taxes last year. So we're looking at that and saying, Mr. Bezos, congratulations, Amazon's a big deal. It's making a lot of money, and all of us, most of us, are participating in it, but you ought to pay some taxes. If you can build rockets and take your friends up for a little shot into space, shouldn't you pay a few bucks in taxes? I don't think it's unreasonable. Same thing holds true for these corporations. When we look at the biggest corporations and most profitable in America, too darn many of them pay no federal taxes. What's going on here? We live in a country where success leads to wealth, and wealth leads, I think, to some responsibility, some social responsibility, and that includes paying your taxes. Under President Biden's Build Back Better agenda, we want to extend the child tax credit, give working families a little breathing room, and reduce child poverty in America. Now, if they want to come up and criticize us for reducing child poverty in America, so be it, but call it for what it is. We're putting our tax policy on the side of families with kids. For our Republicans' families who say families like Lydia's don't need any help, they do, and she does, and we cannot walk away from them. Not a single Republican will vote for this reconciliation bill. We know it. They didn't vote for the rescue plan. That's just their choice. I'm sorry to say that we're not going to build back America better unless we change some policy, and tax policy to help working families makes a difference. And I mentioned to you how the deficit skyrocketed during the Trump administration. Well, the senator from Kentucky comes and repeats over and over again, well, they're going to do it again. They're going to run up the deficit. We have a plan to pay for the programs that we are talking about. And it means putting a new tax responsibility on people who are wealthy. The president made it clear, I don't want taxes going up on anybody making less than $400,000 a year. So any tax policy we have will affect the wealthy and corporations that aren't paying their fair share. That's our approach, quite a bit different than the Republican approach. Building Back Better is also going to do something about easing long-term inflationary pressure and making life affordable for families. The things we invested in the Build Back Better agenda are spread over a number of years, and they'll pave the way for an enduring economic recovery. These policies will help parents get back to work by making safe, reliable child care more accessible. I don't know what the final negotiations will be on Build Back Better. We know that the amount of money involved is going to be less than originally thought. We're going to have to change some things, but I certainly hope that this idea of child care, affordable, quality, safe child care, is part of the final package. It means so much to so many working families, particularly to moms who can't get back to work unless they have peace of mind and have their kids in good hands while they're working. Everyone from single mothers to our nation's economists can tell you the best way to stabilize the American economy is by supporting working families. In fact, a report by Moody's concluded that the Republican fear-mongering about inflation, and we hear it every day on the floor, Moody's called it, quote, overdone. Now, Moody's is hardly a Democratic publication, but the fear of inflation is one of the reasons the Republicans give for not wanting to even talk about changing tax policy in America. This pandemic has shown us cracks in our economy. This Building Back Better will get us to the point where we can start to rebuild it in the right way, give families financial relief, invest in our nation's economic potential. The President said in New Jersey, I couldn't agree with him more, we have never gone wrong in America investing in the people in this country. We have a lot of hardworking people. They do it every single day for their families, and those who come to this country keep up the tradition. But they need the tools to succeed, and one of those tools is education. I hope that we can find a way to expand opportunities in education for training for our workers into the 21st century. Talk about giving away the store to the Chinese. If we don't invest in our workers, in their training and education, in the next generation to make sure that it is smarter than the last, then we're going to lose ground to the Chinese. You know, I want to say one last word here. I see a senator from Ohio here, so I'm going to be quick about this. It's easy to overlook, take a look at this chart, it's easy to overlook computer chips, small pieces of silicon. They power so many products and appliances and things that we use every single day, we don't pay much attention. They're in our computers, they're in our smartphones, they're in life-saving medical equipment, appliances, microwaves, and our cars, dozens even in the cars that we drive. There's a global shortage of microchips. That's one of the reasons it slowed down production of new vehicles and why the market for used vehicles is tighter than usual because of these little chips. And we become too reliant on foreign countries to produce them. In a bill that we considered a few months ago, we put an investment, direct investment in America in building microchips. I think that's money well spent. I hope it works. I think it can. And if we can provide these microchips, we don't have to wait for some company in Taiwan or China to send us this critical element that's needed to build all these products. The global shortage of computer chips and the higher cost to consumers is one example how we failed to invest in the nation's resilience. I have to say, education, investment in American production and workers is the best way to get this economy moving again. We need to have a reserve supply of these chips so that we can build the autos and provide for the assembly lines and stabilize prices for everything from toasters to tractors. It's an important undertaking, and I hope my colleagues will realize that Build Back Better, the reconciliation bill, is dedicated to the same premise. Let me close with reference to a vote that we face today. We have another qualified nominee, Myrna Perez, for the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. She is really competent and experienced. She's been handling complex civil litigation and ready to serve on the Second Circuit on day one. Degree from Yale University, Harvard University, and Columbia Law School. After graduating, she clerked for U.S. District Court for the District of Pennsylvania and the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. Dedicated her career to defending America's right to vote through her work at the Brennan Center for Justice, where she serves as director of the Voting Rights and Election Section. In this capacity, she led their effort to defend the Voting Rights Act and to protect, as John Lewis said, this precious sacred right. Far too few nominees to the federal bench have significant experience in handling civil rights and voting rights. In Ms. Perez, the Senate has the opportunity to confirm a judge who will bring that experience to the bench. Importantly, she understands the difference between being an advocate and a judge. I have every confidence she'll serve with diligence, fairness, and impartiality. And she'll also bring demographic diversity to the Second Circuit. She will be the first Latina to serve on that court since former Judge Sonia Sotomayor, now Justice Sotomayor. Ms. Perez's nomination has received broad support across the spectrum: national civil rights groups, leaders in law enforcement, academics, faith leaders, as well as senators from her own state, Senator Schumer and Gillibrand. One group of police chiefs and sheriffs and prosecutors sent a letter extolling her virtues, and I'll ask that that be entered into the record without objection.
Without objection.
Thank you. Several faith leaders also submitted letters, including Reverend Allison DeFore, who wrote that Ms. Perez is, quote, an individual of the highest integrity, thoughtful, sound in her judgment, committed to principles of justice that transcend politics. She embodies the true meaning of public service and would be an exceptional federal judge. Ms. Perez's nomination received bipartisan support in the Judiciary Committee. In short, she's a seasoned litigator ready to take on an important job. I hope my colleagues will join me in supporting her. I yield the floor.